Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV. We're taking a look today at a pretty value-packed tablet from Lenovo. This is their Yoga Tab Plus. It is running Android, as you can see here, and it comes with the keyboard, the pen, and the tablet itself for a pretty reasonable price. You can usually find these for around $700, give or take, and sometimes less when there are certain promotions going on. And I found it to be a pretty decent tablet for the price point. Now, I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, that this is on loan from Lenovo. So when we're done with this, it goes back to them. All the opinions you're about to hear are my own, and no one has reviewed or approved what you're about to see before it was uploaded. So let's get into it now and see what this tablet is all about. Now, the display on this is rather large. It is 12.7 inches. So if you're somebody looking for a large tablet, I think this is a pretty good value. The display looks very nice. It is an LTPS display, not an OLED, and it runs at a 3K resolution, so it's basically a little lower than 4K, but a bit higher than 1080p. I did find that text and graphics and photos and movies all look very nice on this, even when close in, so you're not going to see the little pixels on screen, and I think this was the sweet spot that they could find to hit the price point here. It runs at a 144 Hz refresh rate, so things are very fast and responsive on screen. It's also very bright. This supports Dolby Vision, and so on the lower end it'll be 650 nits, on the higher end 900. And I found that you can actually force it into the brighter mode here by just cranking up the screen brightness all the way to the right here. And that makes it very, very bright. And I had to turn it down a bit just so my camera wouldn't get blown out. I did take it outside a little bit earlier, and it detected the sunlight and immediately cranked up to full brightness. So you will be able to make use of the full brightness of the display when you need it. It is a very bright display for a tablet at this price point. It does support 100% of the DCI-P3 color space, and it runs at a 16:10 aspect ratio. Good viewing angles on it as well. Just a very nice display that they baked into this tablet. As far as media consumption is concerned, this does support Widevine L1, which means you'll get the maximum resolution out of Netflix and Disney Plus and other media when you play it. So nothing's going to look muddy on here. In my testing, everything seemed to work quite nicely, and the display was a nice surprise given the price point here. And it's got a decent amount of performance also. It's got a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 processor on board. As you'll see a little later in the video, it benchmarks quite nicely and has decent performance for games and other demanding applications. It also has 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5X RAM on board too, so you will have plenty of ability to multitask on your tablet here. It's got Wi-Fi 7 built in and Bluetooth, of course. It doesn't, though, have a GPS radio, so I did try to do some amateur radio work with this. It doesn't seem to support GPS when it's not connected to a network. This one does not have any kind of 5G capability. I don't know if they've got one that does, so this is strictly a Wi-Fi tablet. Now, I was very pleased with the camera system on this, at least for web conferencing. You've got a nice 13 megapixel camera on the front, and it will shoot 4K 30 frames per second video, and as you can see, it looks very nice. In fact, it looks nicer than most of the laptops that I review here on the channel, so that was fun to see. On the back, you have two other cameras. You've got another identical 13 megapixel camera and a camera that can do macro shots at 2 megapixels. So here are some images that I took with that rear camera. It does have some AI features to identify things that you're pointing it at and improve the quality. So this one, it detected as a flower and it improved the quality at the time of shooting. This is what that macro lens looks like. And here's another one I took out of the other lens. So decent quality photos here. It also shoots video out the back at 4K 30, but it doesn't have any stabilizer. So although the video looks great, it doesn't look great when you move the camera around. So you're going to want to keep that camera locked down, but it does look pretty good, I think, for a tablet camera. But unfortunately, they don't give you much in the way of storage on this one. So this does have 256 gigabytes of onboard storage, but no SD card slot option for expanding it. You could, I suppose, plug some memory into the USB-C port here on the bottom. It is a full-service port, but you lack the ability to get a convenient way to carry more storage around with you unless you subscribe to some kind of cloud service provider. So that was the big letdown on this one, was no SD card slot. There isn't much actually in the way of slots or ports on this at all. So you have your power button here on the left-hand side that doubles as a fingerprint reader. On the other side, you've got your USB-C port, and that is it for ports, as you can see here. So it is pretty limited in what you can do from an expansion standpoint. However, the USB-C port here is a full-service port, which means it supports data devices. It's also how you charge the tablet, and it also does video output. You can mirror the output of the internal display or extend it where you have something different on the extended display and a unique image on the internal one. So that was kind of nice and very much a laptop-like feature. And speaking of laptop-like feature, when you connect up the keyboard to the tablet here, and again the keyboard comes with it, you get your laptop functionality here with a very nice trackpad. I'll give you the overhead view here so you can see what it all looks like. It is not backlit, but it's otherwise your typical Lenovo keyboard with very nicely spaced keys. There's actually a good amount of key travel, even though it's a very thin attachment here. And I found the typing experience to be quite nice and the trackpad to be quite effective. And they've got a different mode you can put this into optionally, which is called PC mode. And when you enable this, it behaves more like a laptop, even though it is running with Android. So for example, I can load up the Android Chrome browser here, and then the notepad, and I have all of my applications running in Windows. And then when you detach the keyboard, it will go back into tablet mode, where those applications will run full screen here. So it's got some neat modes of operation, and I found the keyboard to be a very nice keyboard. They certainly didn't cheap out on it at all, minus the fact that it doesn't have a backlight on it. The keyboard, of course, also doubles as a case. It will fold up nicely here and put the device to sleep. It will also fold around to the back, if I can get it back open again, so that you can continue using it as a tablet, and it will disable the keyboard once it gets flipped back around. My only gripe with it is the kickstand on the back. It's sticking up, as you can see here. It doesn't seem to want to go back flush against the case, but it does detach here if you don't want to have it attached, and it connects magnetically to the back of the tablet here. But it's the only part of it that feels kind of clumsy is this part, just because it just doesn't feel all that sturdy, even though it does hold it up quite nicely. But again, it does stick up here like this, as you can see. Now, with all of its accessories attached, it comes in at a weight of 2 pounds, 7 ounces, or about 1.1 kilograms. When you strip away the keyboard and the kickstand in the back and just have the tablet out on its own, it weighs 1.41 pounds or 640 grams. I found the build quality of the tablet to be quite nice. It's got nice thick glass here on the front, all metal case all around. It's just got a very nice premium feel to it. The pen, which we'll explore in a few minutes, also feels very nicely constructed, and it charges on the top of the tablet. There's a little charging pad here that aligns up magnetically. It doesn't sit centered, though, as you can see. It's kind of offset to the side, but it does have a place to go, and it will charge the pen when it's attached. Now, it's got a decent set of speakers on board. It also says it has subwoofers as part of that speaker set. You're not going to get a lot of deep bass out of those subwoofers, but it does make the sound a little more rich for the size here. So it's not a flat, tinny audio experience. It actually sounds good and balanced. You do get decent immersion out of it, given the length of the tablet here when it's in its landscape orientation. So it's got good immersion, especially for Dolby Atmos content, which this supports. So the audio is very good, but if you want some deeper thumping bass, you'll have to attach a pair of headphones or speakers to the USB-C port or over Bluetooth. So now that we've got a good hardware overview, why don't we see how this tablet performs? Now, this is running Android 15 for its underlying operating system. This will get security updates for about 4 years from the date that it was manufactured. So after 2029, it won't get any security updates. It'll still work, but it just won't be supported by the company. And so the length of support on these is a little less than it might be for a PC or a Chromebook that typically have much longer support periods. So just bear that in mind. Again, it'll still work, but you won't get any security updates after 2029. Why don't we jump into a web browser here and see how well it performs at browsing the web. We'll take a look at the nasa.gov homepage, and we'll just poke around a few different places here on the web. And as you can see, things render in here very, very quickly as expected. This is a nicely performing tablet, and it seems to be delivering on all that it promises from a basic performance standpoint. We'll take a look now at the split screen mode here, so you can put it into 2 different window panes and maybe watch a YouTube video on one side, and you can hear how loud those speakers get on here. And you can also resize things and make it better in tune for what you're looking for. But as you can see, it does performed very quickly here doing some of these basic tablet tasks, and of course you can always switch it into that desktop mode if you have the keyboard attached to it. So from a basic performance standpoint here, it seems to be pretty snappy and responsive as expected. So why don't we take a look now at the pen, and they've done two things that I think are really innovative here. So the pen on the surface looks like your usual stylus here, but what it will do when you start writing is deliver a little bit of haptic feedback to make it feel like you're writing on a piece of paper. So you'll feel the pen vibrate slightly, similar to how a pencil feels as you're writing on paper. It's got that rough feel to it, even though the screen is smooth and slippery. And it actually helps, I think, be a little bit more accurate because it's got this little bit of haptic feedback that delivers some realism that has been lacking for me when I write on these tablet screens. It's very noticeable, actually, even though it's subtle. Additionally, as you're writing, there's a slight sound that will come out of the tablet to replicate the sound of a pen on paper. And that little bit of haptic feedback, along with that sound, tricks your brain into thinking that it's writing on paper. So it's pretty neat. It's a neat experience here. And you also get similar effects with other pens that you might choose. There's also some pressure detection here. So if I just write lightly here, I get one kind of line. And if I push down harder, I get another one. And as I'm drawing across here, it might be hard to hear on camera, but it's got this marker sound that it's making as I draw on screen here. And apparently this works across other applications as well. So neat feature. It does make the screen feel less slippery, and it's just a little bit of haptic feedback in the pen that delivers a very unique writing experience and one that I haven't seen before. And what's nice about this is that you get that rough feel without having to impact the quality of the display for other things that you might do with it. Now, from a battery life perspective, doing the basic tasks that we just did here will probably get you north of 11 hours of battery life, provided you keep the screen brightness at a reasonable level. If you're watching movies, you should be okay, but if you're watching HDR movies where you've got some high brightness scenes, that might impact battery a little bit. So the more that you do with this, the less the battery life will be, but basic tablet tasks will easily get you through most of the workday, if not all of it, and into a portion of the afternoon. But if you start editing video or doing games, that of course will eat into your battery life much more significantly. Why don't we take a look at gaming now on the tablet and see how it performs. So this game is called Wuthering Waves. It's one of these free-to-play RPGs you can find in the Google Play Store. And I picked this one because it does have a mode that takes advantage of some of these higher-end processors we're finding on these tablets. And as you can see here, running in the quality setting option, things are very responsive. I would say this is probably in the neighborhood, if not a little better than what you could get on a Nintendo Switch. So all in, I think the gaming experience here, at least for Android gaming, is decent. Why don't we take a look now at some emulation? So this is Outrun 2006. It's a PlayStation 2 game that we're currently running in emulation. Now I've got the game running in its 480p mode, and we're running at full speed here, and I'm at the default setting. So I probably could get a little more graphically out of this game if I enabled some of its enhancement features. But overall, it looks like you'll be able to play PlayStation 2 on this, some GameCube games perhaps, and of course a lot of the other older game consoles should run nicely on here too, and they look great on this display. And on the 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme benchmark test, we got a score of 4,690. So graphically, this is kind of in the ballpark of an Apple M1 based iPad or even the Asus ROG Ally. Now, of course, this is running Android and not Windows, so it's limited in what games it can play, but the underlying horsepower of its GPU is pretty significant here, and I think it's got a lot of gaming potential as a result. Now, life would not be complete these days without some kind of AI gimmick, and Lenovo has an app here called AI Now that runs on the device only. It doesn't go out to the internet for additional assistance, and what it lets you do is load in documents that you can use as a knowledge base so you can ask it questions throughout the day. And although it's not great, it actually performs better than I expected. So for example, I put in 2 transcripts of 2 different YouTube videos that I did recently, and I asked it questions to see if it could get them correct. And it got them partially correct. So for example, the Unifi transcript here was about a network device that did not come with a power adapter. And I asked it as a quiz to see if it did come with a power adapter, and it said that it does require a separate power supply that costs extra. It kept getting the price wrong though. So in this video, I talked about the device that I reviewed and another device, and then mentioned the power adapter a little bit later. and it was getting the price just mixed up because it wasn't able to draw the context out about what the price of that power adapter was from the transcript. So it got that partially correct. It did a little better with the second question that I asked it here about a video where I was showing how you can make your own television station and how I programmed that station. And it did kind of get it right here, saying that I put the kids shows in the morning and then had Johnny Carson and David Letterman later in the evening. So it's probably a good summary tool, I guess, but not perfect. But it's kind of cool that you can run all this stuff locally on the tablet itself. But as far as AI goes, you're going to get much more useful AI using ChatGPT, Gemini, or another AI service. So that will do it for this look at the Lenovo Tab Plus. And if you were looking for something affordable but still perform quite well, I think this is a good choice, especially because they have a very high quality keyboard and pen packed into the box for what I think is a very reasonable price. And if you shop around a bit, I think you could find this for a very good price. So if you have a little patience and are willing to wait for a sale to pop up, I think you'll really enjoy this one. So all in, another decent, solid tablet from Lenovo. And until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.